We'll see if some of our panelists show up for world politics on this particular Thursday afternoon, but definitely there are folks still chiming in on what's going on the presidential race. And of course, we've got that NATO summit going on. It is my understanding that later on today, President Biden will be making another address to NATO. We'll see how he does there and what the response is from the international community to his address as well. So we'll see how this all goes and what he has to say about a number of these things and along those lines and just what happens in that regards. By the way, here in North Carolina, we know we've got Governor Roy Cooper, who is expressing his support, and apparently he is seen as a popular governor. There were even some people that were throwing his name out as a potential replacement should Biden step down, but he's expressing his support for President Joe Biden amid questions from some in his party about whether he's the best choice to work to win the 2024 election. So one of our local TV stations, WITN, asked Cooper, who was in Goldsboro for an education-related stop at Wayne Community College, about his stance on Biden. And he said, quote unquote, "I strongly support President Biden. He has made his decision to stay in this race. We must stop Donald Trump from getting near the Oval Office again. And I believe that Joe Biden and his performance as president. The infrastructure investments that have been made have been positive from this country, so I'm positive about the election," is what Cooper said. So definitely there has been a number of folks that have been questioning his fitness and have been talking about that, meaning Biden and all along those lines. So it looks like Biden has been weathering a barrage of questions about his fitness for another 4 years in office, following what many saw as a disastrous debate against former President Donald Trump that was held last month. So definitely looks like there's no interest, at least right now, from Cooper about picking up this mantle and becoming the new presidential candidate. I mean, there's been talk about George Clooney and a number of others as well. So it'll be interesting to see what goes on in that space and if anybody jumps in and all along those lines. I did have that tape that was very interesting from the folks over there at Midas Touch, and I may play some of that later as well, depending on who else shows up. But I do see I've got Jacoby, and he's a fellow North Carolinian, so I'll ask him what he thinks about this notion and all along those lines. So what's our thoughts about the potential of a Roy Cooper presidency? Because I did see that he was apparently not interested in the job and all along those lines, and he even came out as one of the folks. I mean, because there seems to be split in the Democratic Party, those that are supporting Joe staying in the race, meaning President Joe Biden, and those that are asking him to pull out. But one of the names that was floated, and I didn't hear his name necessarily as a vice presidential candidate for Kamala, but maybe that would be interesting, a Southern man and an African-American woman as a ticket and all along those lines. But I just wanted your thoughts on Cooper's political future and maybe even national political future and whether he should have considered this notion. And also it does look like he came to Biden's aid, and there have been others that have done the same.
I don't think he would end up either being vice president or even president, because honestly, if Biden drops out, the best case for the Democrat Party would be to throw in Kamala Harris in there. At this moment, Kamala Harris is pretty much with the independents, either leading or tied with Trump, where Biden is 6 points down in the independents. So right now, Kamala Harris would be the best bet. Also because this actual go round or this election is still riding on the waves of what Trump did with Roe v. Wade. So women will carry the ballot, and having a woman at the top of the ticket would be a big boon for the Democrat Party, and I think that would be a big push, regardless of even her politics. I think that people really want something different, and if the Democrat Party is only offering something different, then a lot of people will slide over that way. However, with Cooper, I don't. If anything, he would go into a cabinet position and not a vice presidency or anything like that. The vice president, that based on what Kamala Harris would do, I it's a toss up. There are a ton of options out there. I don't think Cooper has the notoriety that would be necessary to bring in a bunch of votes.
Well, one of those interesting possibilities, and I'd love to hear Sasha's thoughts about it. I can't think of the gentleman's name, but I think that he's in the Northeast somewhere, and he's a governor as well, and apparently a popular governor. I think he's the one from Pennsylvania, but he has some Jewish American background. So one of the names that was thrown out, and I'm trying to remember his name, is the gentleman that is the governor there, and I won't say it's in Pennsylvania, but I know he's got some Jewish background, and apparently is very strong in that community. So that might be a possible VP for Kamala as well. But definitely, and I'll do some research and try to remember the gentleman's name. But I did hear some of the other pundits mentioning this gentleman's name and all along those lines. But what do you think of Kamala's possible VP possibilities? I've heard some people say that a Kamala Whitmer ticket would not work, because I was even watching one of the folks, and they were saying that we still live in a very sexist kind of society, and they didn't know if America was ready to elect one woman, much less two women, and all along those lines. So they were thinking that that ticket might not be a strong ticket from the sense of what America would be willing to vote for, and all along those lines. Because definitely they were talking about misogyny, and that we definitely have some misogyny in American and Western society, and all along those lines. So while I look up that gentleman's name and everything, what is your thoughts about possible VP candidates? Should Kamala be at the top of the ticket, and all along those lines, Sasha?
Is the name of the governor is John Fetterman?
It's not Fetterman. Fetterman's a senator, and this was a governor. But I'll find out the name.
Oh, governor. Oh, yeah, you're right. I think it's a little bit premature to decide who will be Kamala Harris VP. I think it's premature. It's unclear whether Biden will resign and she will become a president. It's unclear whether she will be nominated by a Democratic the Congress or meeting or whatever they have, the primaries. I don't remember, convention. Okay, so it's all premature. First of all, it has to be decided what's happened with Biden. He has a press conference today at 6:30. So maybe he will announce something, maybe he will not. It's anybody's guess. I think he should have done it probably even a week and a half ago, and just step down, and he would become a great American patriot and great Democrat and everything else. Right now, when he's being thrown out of the race by Democrats themselves, it's a very different picture. I don't know how it's going to repair this damage. But we'll see. We'll see what this press conference is all about. That remains to be seen.
Yeah, that press conference might even touch some on the NATO conference that's been going on as well, because definitely there's been some conversation about that and how he's done at that conference, and whether he is succeeding or not succeeding, and all along those lines. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out and everything. While I'm still trying to find that gentleman's name and everything. One of the other things that I've heard people talk about, and I think you might have mentioned it, Sasha, as well, and it's apparently trending on Twitter, is some folks are wondering about how much coverage is Trump getting for some of the flubs that he's done, including some of the flubs that he did apparently at the Florida speech that he gave, but also some of his past alliances and past folks that he was affiliated with. And given that there are both Republicans and Democrats that have been affiliated with this man that I'm going to mention, but apparently it's been definitely all over Twitter and everything. Folks are trying to tie not Biden, but trying to tie Trump, and in the past they've tried to tie the Clintons to Epstein. So there's a number of folks that have even found the manifest of some of the plane trips and have seen pictures and everything else about Biden and Epstein. Some people have even called it a bromance, and all along those lines. Is this stuff that can actually be discussed and is a legitimate conversation point? Because definitely apparently it's all over Twitter that people are talking about their friendship.
There must be a way to properly present this information to American people. It has not been done. Some people say, oh yeah, he was involved with Epstein. Then the Republicans will say, no, this is not true. He was not involved with Epstein. So you're going back and forth. It's nothing. It's really nothing. If you would have the facts and present them in a way that it could be further investigated, or maybe even indictment, or maybe something that, well, look, Trump was convicted of 34 felony charges. And what's happened with that? Everybody already forgot it. Nothing. It was Democrats. They just make looks like he is convicted. He's not. Did he go to jail? Oh no, he didn't go to jail. So what's this conviction all about? What he was convicted? Was he convicted and stay in a house arrest for hour and a half? No, there was absolutely nothing. So this is, you see, this is more about perception of people about each candidate than what's really happening. Because what's really happening, nobody knows. Nobody gives a damn. Some people investigate a little bit more scrupulously. Some people just say, well, we don't care about it. So this is the propaganda machine of Republicans works 25 times better than Democratic. And there is an explanation. It's all coming from the top. If the president himself cannot explain anything properly so people will understand, so how you expect some far hired guns to put it properly and relate when there is no power coming from the top? And this is unfortunately the situation. He might be a very good man, a good husband, good father, good president, good senator, and all that stuff. But it's what's happening now. Now he is weak. He cannot sustain another 4 years, it's clear. Or even he sustain maybe 6 months, and then he'll have to go. Or maybe he will not even sustain 6 months. But it doesn't matter. Perception is that he cannot. Period. Full stop.
And I will double exactly what Sasha said. I mean, people see Biden as old, and there's nothing he can do about that.
But he is old.
Yeah, he is old.
He's definitely old and everything. By the way, I did find out the governor that I was trying to remember, because he had like a Jewish last name, or a Jewish surname, I should say, and all along those lines. And it is Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro. So that's the one that I was trying to remember, that is the current governor that has been floated as a potential VP for Kamala. And apparently he's got some popularity, just like Roy Cooper does, as being seen as a progressive yet liberal governor, and that is a swing state. So that is one of the people that was thrown out there as a potential candidate. And all along those lines, it was Josh Shapiro is the one that I was thinking about. Just in that same realm, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about this, because I found another figure that some people find polarizing, but it was interesting in one of the articles I was reading. And I've said sometimes that I admire the background that she came from, because she definitely was a working class kind of young lady and everything. But one of the articles I was reading recently, and there was actually several articles, I believe, was talking about this pivot to a little bit of degree that even the progressives are getting upset at. So it seems, and definitely as you study history and you study people's political trajectory, there is sometimes a move in different directions. And apparently AOC, who is seen as the leader of the progressives, is moving more toward a centrist kind of view, is what some people are saying, and all along those lines. So they're saying she's moving more centrist, and it may be that part of it is that she wants to push Biden more toward the Green Deal and other things that she is a supporter of that aren't necessarily centrist. But it does seem like, and she's now been a member of the establishment for a while herself. But one of the conversations I was hearing, and we've got Steve joining us as well, and I'd love to hear his thoughts about this, is this notion of AOC, who is the leader of the squad, or one of the leaders of the squad, along with Ayanna Presley and others, that they are moving more toward a centrist kind of stance versus the very liberal stance that they used to have. So is that something you're hearing, Steve? Because I saw that on a couple of articles where maybe AOC is moving a little bit more toward a center position versus the more liberal positions that she was known for.
I haven't heard that, Mark. I mean, I think that, maybe she realizes that the political future for Democrats is moving more to the center. I'm actually I'm got a new computer so I can get my old background back, but I'm a WPTF on my old machine. And today we talked a lot about, we had Major League Cricket on, so I know Jacoby's talk about that. That was interesting to learn about Major League Cricket and the growth. But today what we talked about is Vice President Harris's visit, President Biden's press conference this evening. There are rumors rumbling that the Biden campaign is secretly talking about him stepping down and Vice President Harris being the nominee. An internal poll shows her doing better. But I think everyone's on pins and needles. You know, and just, yeah, but I think, Mark, to answer your question, I think that this might just be Democrats realizing that if they're going to win the White House, they're going to win the Congress, they're going to win the Senate, they got to come back to the center and talk about business and moderate issues as well as the more liberal issues.
Yeah, and even in her state, because New York at one time was seen as a solidly Democratic state, and there's even some people that are speculating that New York could go to Trump, which would definitely be a shock to me and others as well. So I don't know if Jacoby's got some thoughts, or Shaquille as well, but there's been this notion of her going to that more centrist position and New York being a kind of a in play now, whereas it wasn't in play before.
I don't think it's more so that she's going centrist, more so than she's taking over the Bernie Sanders wing at some point. I think she's going to be your natural transition piece to where Bernie Sanders positions before were seen so right wing and so on and so forth, or so left wing, but now they become more palatable to everybody. Same thing with AOC, because she was an easy boogeyman, and now she's becoming more palatable so people can listen to it. But I don't think that. I think she still has some positions that are still extremely progressive, but I do think she's listening to. Steve knows as well as anybody, being in a position of power, you actually do things a tad bit differently than you would say, okay, I would like this. It's a negotiation always in that position of power, trying to balance what's going to help everybody more so than it's just going to help a few or harm individuals. So in that position of power, you got to work through or navigate through those things. And so I think that's what she's doing, where she's starting to see, and she's becoming, again, more palatable to people. Even though her position, like the Green New Deal, it was a name thing that people hated. It became a boogeyman, but a lot of people like the policies, or some of the policies on the inside, and those can become worse. I've got dogs and kids running around right now, so you know it's kind of crazy.
Let me ask Sasha Starr. Let's go to Sasha Starr. It's been kind of quiet. I mean, I'm curious, Sasha.
I just wanted to say this one thing for you, Steve, real quick, before you jump to Sasha, because we all seem too serious right now. Steve, I love you, I truly do, but that white suit and the tie, man, I'm thinking of Kentucky Fried Chicken right now.
Yeah, I just wore my Carolina blue. It's not coming so good on the thing. Maybe get some KFC, call it a night. As a white-serving Indian American, wouldn't that be funny? This is some bluegrass music. Man, you got me hungry for some KFC now. Remember the old restaurants? Oh, back in the day, they don't even do those restaurants, you know. But real quickly, I want to go to Sasha Starr. Sasha, how was Vice President Harris perceived in Canada? I mean, is she looked upon as a viable presidential candidate, or do they not even know who she is?
Well, my answer should be people who sympathize with Republican Party, they hate her and think that she's the ultimate evil. If you will ask why, nobody will explain why. They also say, I told you so, and that's how it is. Now, people who are leaning towards Democrats, they think that they are very smart and intelligent women, and the fact that you don't see her a lot, that's exactly what vice president should do. He should provide support to a president, not to be on the foreground too much, and exactly that what Mike Pence did when Trump was president. Did you see a lot of Mike Pence? I don't think
so. No, you didn't. But I find that ironic, Sasha, that's a great point. I mean, you know, I've got to be completely honest here. I've met Vice President Harris at least 5 or 6 times, spoken to her. I know her inner circle, her staff. I met her husband. I've always been very impressed with her. She's very personable. She's very smart. She's very alert and responsive. She has charisma. And I find it ironic that you raised a good point. When Vice President Pence was in the VP's office, no one knew what he was doing. If you go back to like any vice president, what was Mondale doing when Carter was president? What was Dan Quayle doing when Bush was president? The only vice president that was doing a lot was Joe Biden, and that was because he was an equal partner with President Obama. That was the deal that they struck. So I think a lot of this is just, I mean, there's no proof we have that she wouldn't be an effective president.
Steve, I would like your opinion on something else. I've visited the morning show, the World Edition, so-called, although there is nothing about World, nothing about edition. There is a lot about all American stuff and so on. And okay, I let you sort it out. But there was something else. The people discussed there, I don't remember who exactly, is that the question that people who elect president, they're being asked, are you better off today than 40 years ago? And the answer is, of course, not. And therefore, we need some change. We need Trump and so on. Has anybody asked that question 4 years ago? Are you better now than?
Yeah. People are. I mean, let me answer that question to get where my political analyst hat. So, the Republicans are the ones that are coming in and saying that we're not better off 4 years ago because they say that we have inflation, which former President Trump's been able to say is because of the excessive spending of President Biden, which is a lie because inflation was the result of the pandemic and demand exceeding supply, and so prices would go up during a pandemic. Inflation's actually come down from where it was when Trump left the presidency to about, I think, 5.1%. Still high. They're citing, are we better off 4 years ago? Pricing in the grocery stores, gas prices, housing prices, all higher. And then the third thing, are we in a safer world with Hamas attacking Israel and Ukraine and Putin? But I think with all those being aside, the Democrats have some good points, but they really haven't made them, Sasha. I mean, the fact is unemployment's down to 3.5%, higher than it was, lower than when Trump was in there. We've created 15 million new jobs, more than President Trump did. No one's talking about the recovery efforts, the pandemic. The fact of the matter is we vaccinated most of the American people under President Joe Biden, got America working again. And I don't know, some economists have told me that because, I mean, you're a business guy, Sasha, but what I get confused about sometimes is people say that because of all that money that was coming in, we actually prevented ourselves from going in a recession because infrastructure was creating jobs, putting broadband in people's homes, offering healthcare, lowering prescription drug prices and insulin. But it just hasn't relayed to these people out there. And so that's the $1 million question is, are we better off 4 years ago than we were 4 years ago? As an analyst, as a politician, yeah. I think we are, but
I have no doubts about that.
I think this is what we were talking about earlier, Sasha, when I had said, I mean, reality and perception are two different things at this moment. And Steve kind of said a lot of the similar things that I tried to express earlier is that for some odd reason, it's just that reality. People don't want to see that reality for some reason. And that messaging that's there is, it's creating a darker image in people's minds than it really is. Like today, when we talk about inflation, which, as Steve points out, I mean, that was caused heavily by the pandemic. But then, as I pointed out earlier, there's a false inflation where we have corporations talking about record profits in the middle of a time when we're talking about high inflation. So there's a disconnect there that we have as a society. And that perception for every individual is reality. But the truth reality is what Steve said. I mean, we are definitely better off now than we were before. I mean, heck, 4 years ago, we were putting people in freezer trucks, but we forget about that. When we talk about the world being safer or not, it's more dangerous now. Well, Steve points out some of the conflicts that were going on now. But also, if you remember, there was Iran bombed a U.S. military base And the only response was Trump said, "Oh well, the men there who have headaches, everybody gets headaches." So
Well, one of the things when I interviewed, and the other thing people don't talk about, and this is a really healthy discussion. I'm leaving about 5 minutes, but the meeting. But the bottom line is this: think about. I just want people to close their eyes for a minute, or virtually close their eyes, and think about where we were 4 years ago. Okay, we had, regardless of whether you're a Democrat, Republican, Independent, there were people storming the steps in the Capitol, breaking chandeliers, and congressional leaders fearing for their life. Okay, we had a president that said that you could use Clorox or bleach, maybe hydrochloroquine would work, even though he did get the vaccine done. Got to give him credit for that. He did bring manufacturing jobs back, but Biden has continued that, right? But he had the chance to run again for the president of the United States. And like George H.W. Bush, there's only been a few presidents that didn't win a second term. Gerald Ford, Jimmy Carter. Well, Donald Trump joined the list. I thought about something John Chambers said about leadership. He said one of his traits was, I made every mistake I could ever make, but I never made the same mistake twice. And so that was a really wise statement to me. Like, the American people elected Donald J. Trump president of the United States. The question is, let's be honest here, regardless of whether we're living in Canada or the United States, did we feel calm when we met in bed tonight, knowing that he was the commander-in-chief of the United States military or whatever? So I just don't understand, Sasha. I don't understand what is driving this loyalty to Trump. He's like a bully.
Well,
I think people are
there's a
scared
lot
of
of
him.
people that are talking about the kind of way that he has a charisma and a certain other thing in there with other people like Obama and others.
He reminds me.
Celebrities.
I think.
Well, I did have a quick question for you that I'd asked Jacoby, but you would even be in a greater position to answer it. And I kind of agree with what Jacoby said. But there has been this notion of our governor, meaning the governor of North Carolina, either being a substitute president or the vice presidential candidate should Kamala be in charge. You have traveled with Roy Cooper. You know that Roy Cooper has traveled with Kamala. So what is your thoughts about this? And like I mentioned earlier, Josh Shapiro in Pennsylvania has also been thrown out as a possibility, along with Gretchen Whitmer and Gavin Newsom and others. But what is your take of the national future and maybe even the international future of Governor Roy Cooper?
Governor Roy Cooper is, in my opinion, I've known him for many years. When he was Attorney General, he is one of the best governors in the United States of America. He's a Democrat. He led us through the pandemic. Look at all these great things happening in North Carolina. Millions of new jobs, unemployment at 3.5%. One thing, first of all, he's a Morehead Keynes Scholar, full ride to UNC Chapel Hill. One of the first in his family to go to college. Passionate about education, even when he was a state senator, majority leader of the Senate when Jim Hunt was governor, and now, who is a 4-term governor, and now, the governor of North Carolina. I'll say 3 things about him of why I think, yes, absolutely, he's capable of being a president. He's capable of being vice president. He's a great listener. He's a problem solver. He thinks before he acts. I've watched him in a room. I've been watching lately as a leader, his body language. You always see him in a room observing people, and then he will come and have a conversation. I think that he also is very well respected by the Democratic Governors Association, chair of that. People like Governor Newsom, other governors respect him a lot of what he's done. But yeah, the long answer to your question, the short answer to your question is absolutely. This man has the intellectual capability, the personality, and the humility to be the president. I think vice president would be a good start for him. And the funny thing is, just to show you, one day we were at the governor's mansion at the Diwali event a few years ago, and he saw my wife who was there with me, and he left the photo line, everyone, and he came to my wife and he said, I always hear from your husband, but I never hear from you. What do you do? What do you think about all this? And he talked to her, and on the way back, my wife was like, it was so amazing how he came and was with me for those 3 or 4 minutes, right? Which I think makes him very special. And the last North Carolinian to become president was Andrew Johnson. He was born in Raleigh, but then he lived in Tennessee, I think, right? So anyway, yeah, I think a Harris Cooper ticket would be good. We'll see.
It'll be interesting to see all along those lines. I had brought up a video. I said I was going to play this, and I'd love to hear y'all's comments about it, because there's been a lot of conversation about how bad Biden has done in the debates, and there's no doubt that he did. And this is from Midas Touch, and I will give it, as I said earlier, this is a liberal source, but they definitely brought up some of the things that were said and how they were said by Trump. I believe this was yesterday at his rally, and all along those lines. So I was going to play some of this, but I have to play all of it, and just want to hear some of y'all's response to this, because this is definitely some interesting comments that were made.
We were tough on it, and we would not have Russian warships and nuclear submarines surrounding Cuba 60 miles off our coast. You know that, right? For all of you people in Cuba, congratulations. You're now being protected by Russia. Congratulations. Can you imagine that the press, the fake news, those people, they don't even talk about it. We have nuclear submarines and 5 warships in Cuba, and they don't even talk about it.
Did you hear what Donald Trump just said there during his speech on Tuesday night in Miami, referring to Russia having nuclear submarines in Cuba? He described it as we have nuclear submarines in Cuba. So he's either referring to we as Russia, as him and Russia, or he is giving away our nuclear secrets. And Donald Trump's speech in Miami at his property in Doral just got worse and worse as the night progressed. Here, Donald Trump complains about water spots and how he doesn't get a water spot. Play the clip.
You know, it's only 103 degrees out here. So, you know, they built all these, they call them, sir, we have many water spots. I said, what about one for me? Do I have one? I don't have one, Marco. They gave water spots. Everybody has, they call it a water spot. Where water comes out, you get. They don't have anything for me. I'm being drenched up here.
Next, Donald Trump starts talking about his imaginary conversations with the fictional cannibal Hannibal Lecter again. Play the clip.
Did anyone ever see the lovely movie Silence of the Lambs? Did you see it? Did you ever hear of Hannibal Lecter? He was a lovely man. He would love to have you for dinner. He will take you. You had many people for dinner. Well, we have a lot of people coming in. They always say, oh, that's terrible, that Trump would say. He is rambling about Hannibal Lecter. No, I'm not rambling. That's who we are allowing people from insane asylums and mental institutions into our country by the tens of thousands. And they're closing them down in other countries. Because, you know, the cost savings and all of the savings.
Then Donald Trump talks about how he doesn't want to describe certain women as pretty, and then talks about how he doesn't call Chris Christie a fat pig anymore, and tells people you shouldn't call him a fat pig. Play the clip.
That's supposed to be a little bit Democrat territory, but we're eating in Nevada, and a waitress came over, beautiful waitress, and I never like talking about physics. She's beautiful inside, because you never talk about a person's look, ever. You never mention it. The other day, I got very angry. Some man called Chris Christie fat, and I said, sir, and then he said he was a pig. I said, sir, Chris Christie is not a fat pig. Please remember that. He is not a fat pig. Please take it back. And the guy's looking at me like, really? No, we have to defend people. You can't call people fat. So I said about 9 times, he is not a fat pig.
Donald Trump then says that he did not know what NATO was before he disgraced the Oval Office. Play the clip.
I didn't even know what the hell NATO was too much before, but it didn't take me long to figure it out, like about 2 minutes. And the first thing I figured out was they weren't paying. We were paying almost fully for NATO.
He then randomly starts doing golf moves while he's on stage. Watch this. And then he challenges President Biden to golf and says it will get lots of ratings. Play the clip.
I'm also officially challenging Cricket Joe to an 18-hole golf match right here. On Doral's Blue Monster, considered one of the greatest tournament golf courses anywhere in the world, one of the great courses of the world. It will be among the most watched sporting events in history, maybe bigger than the Ryder Cup or even the Masters.
In a massive sign of projection, Donald Trump then says that President Biden has so many homes, he can't count all of the homes that President Biden has, and that President Biden spends all this time vacationing, which is just patently false. Just play this clip.
Meanwhile, Crooked Joe has spent almost 50% of his presidency on vacation. Almost all of it, including many, many weeks on the beach. And mansions are in, think of this. Here's a guy that's been a politician all his life. He's got homes in the Virgin Islands, Nantucket, Lake Tahoe, Kiowa Island. I mean, where the hell did they get all this money, Byron? He's got more homes than I do. What the hell is going on with him? That home he's got in Delaware is pretty nice, right? But remember, they said it was his son's home. You know, his son is running it, right? You know that, right?
Trump is saying that as he's giving a speech for his campaign at a hotel that he owns, and like his other properties, is part of a civil fraud lawsuit against him where he was fined over $500 million, and he's going after President Biden for that. Donald Trump then says that he won't support NATO. Play this clip.
They said, sir, may I ask you a question? If we don't pay our bills, will you protect us from Russia? I said, you mean you're delinquent? They said, yes, we're delinquent. Let's say we're delinquent. Would you protect us? I said, no, I will not protect you from Russia.
He then says that he would bring back Tom Homan, who's one of the authors of Project 2025, to a position of leadership if he were to be reelected. Play the clip.
We're going to bring back, by the way, we're bringing back Tom Homan. We're bringing back all of the guys that did such a great job on the border.
He then does that thing where he says, yes, oh yes, quickly, says President Trump. Just watch this. Play this clip.
Energy dominant again. Yes, oh yes, and quickly, says President Trump. Yeah.
By the way, the corporate media wants to talk about President Biden. I mean, have you been watching these clips I'm showing you? By the way, okay, let's talk about President Biden.
Getting to President Biden, but they brought up the speech from NATO and all of those lines, and it was actually saying that he did better than that he did in the whole notion of the debate and everything. But I just wanted y'all to take on that because I saw that yesterday. And yeah, there was a lot of rambling from Trump as well, and a lot of times that's what the folks are complaining about with Biden, in addition to the age and the cognitive issues. And I think there's only about a 2 or 3 year difference between them. So I just wondering y'all's thoughts on that speech, and that speech was literally 2 days ago and everything along those lines. So like I said, that's the one I was referring to that I had seen, I guess, earlier this morning or like late last night and everything. It was from that liberal source and everything. And I will acknowledge it might have touched as a liberal source, but I just wanted your take on those clips. I mean, they were just basically playing it. I don't think that, I mean, yeah, he was making commentary, but I also don't think that they were editing it or like doctoring it and all along those lines. But what's your take on what you heard from Trump 2 days ago?
Well, he's addressing his own audience where he cannot be checked, the facts. He can say anything what he wants, and to one audience he says one thing, to slightly different audience. But I mean his audience, he will slightly adjust his angle and he will say slightly different things. So to analyze seriously everything what he says, I think it's just a waste of time. However, I mentioned in the morning, but people on the show were busy with other more important things. But I've mentioned that NATO adopted a resolution that the membership for Ukraine in NATO is imminent. They adopted a resolution that no longer the command of NATO will involve the United States of America. Enough is enough. America is not trustworthy. They are always put their own interests ahead of their partners in NATO and other countries that they're helping. So therefore, the structure of helping to Ukraine will no longer involve American base in Germany with the name Ramstein. It will be replaced with a 3-star European commander-in-chief with 700 staff which will not include America at all. They're preparing to the possibility that Trump will become a president. And if you will carefully read the Heritage Foundation document about what they came up with, clearly you will see no longer with the people. That's a thing of the past. There will be I, the president, because he will be able overpower through the immunity concept. He will overpower the Senate, the Congress, even the Supreme Court if needed. So he is a complete in command completely. And he will, by the way, he will immediately fire all top army generals. Number one thing, what he will do in an hour and a half after he will be sworn in the office, he needs a little lieutenants, majors, people who will be thankful to him till the rest of his life, that he will promote them and make them the 2 stars, then the generals in a while, and so on. So he will completely make all the command of the United States, including military, his own. There will be no more Congress or anywhere. In fact, I think he will try eventually even to change the Constitution. There will be no longer need for Congress and even Supreme Court or senators or so on, because if he is Supreme Commander, why does he need all these little structures here and there? He just doesn't need them. In fact, he can one day, if he feel like, he can put them all in jail and saying that they were traitors and they didn't obey his commands, and therefore he will put them in jail. He will try them, and most likely will have conviction of each of them for 15, 20 years, and that was the end of it. That's where it's all going. And of course, in Europe, they understand that, so they're trying to make some precautions. Now, what Americans are going to do then, I'm at loss.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Hey, Sasha, I had said to a couple of folks on the network that I was going to tease you about something. You know, I have a great deal of admiration for you both as a soccer fan, and yes, you did call me out, and rightfully so, that I had forgotten that Brazil had lost and everything. And I did see that there was the game that was played yesterday that I think Colombia actually beat the team that you were rooting for, which was Uruguay. But I was going to ask you, since we, as you oftentimes bring up, we are a world politics show, and sometimes world issues go on even in the sports lanes and everything. What is it with the rampant soccer fans and all along those lines? Because I understand that the Uruguay fans, and the game was actually played here in North Carolina, in Charlotte and everything, but they got a little upset maybe at some of the calls. I did not watch the game, so I'm not going to say that I did and know why they were doing that. But I just wanted your take, because I love soccer, but sometimes even as an international fan, you're going, whether it's England or Netherlands or a number of other countries. I know people get very passionate about their soccer and everything, and they sometimes storm the fields or storm the stands and do a number of other things. So I just wanted your take on the popularity of soccer, but also the passion of the fans.
Okay, first of all, about soccer itself. There are 3 South American teams which are better, and quite much better, than all European teams, with the exception of Spain, because Spain is playing style very close to Latin American, and they're very technical and fast, so Spain can compete with teams like, here's a final, Argentina against Colombia. Argentina is, of course, a powerhouse, is the world champion and so on, but Colombia surprised me a great deal, how fast they are, how technical they are. It's a fire. They're much faster than Argentina. So Argentina's game on Sunday will not be easy at all. Now, Uruguay came 3rd. Now, based on the game with Colombia, that they were competing for 90 minutes, they had at one point extra men for some time, but they couldn't score. But Colombia was fiercely defending their lead, and they were succeeded finally. But because Uruguay in previous match beat Brazil, which is a powerhouse in itself, that tells me that Uruguay is incredibly strong team, maybe slightly lower level than Argentina, but in some respect, I think they're faster than the Argentinian team. I think they're younger. But right now, all eyes on Colombia. Colombia did tremendously well. In Europe, situation is quite simple. It's Spain against England. England is the most hated team on this championship. There will be more people voting for Spain. Spain could be the first team in Europe who made up the European Championship 7 wins, 0 draws, 0 losses. We'll see. It all depends whether they will be able to beat England or not. But we'll see. That will be very interesting match. So Sunday, it's a paradise for soccer fans. It's a first European final at 3 o'clock, England, Spain. And then I believe at 8 o'clock will be Colombia, Argentina. So great.
What about the passion of the fans? Like I said, that's been something that's going on for decades. And I know there's a lot of times the fans are passionate and a lot of nationalism goes on with the sport of soccer and everything. But I just wanted your thoughts around that, because that's something that I have seen a number of times. It's always fun to watch, but I did see there was a lot of drive and ambition with the fans being very much behind their country and everything, whether they won or lost. But that's been going on for decades. I just wanted your take on how much interest the fans have in the country of their origin, or the country that they are from or that they are associated with.
Well, this is what makes soccer the perfect sport around the world, because you have national teams, and make no mistakes, their colors, their flags, everything is exciting about it. And that's why there's no such thing as, well, maybe I'll vote for this team or maybe that team is better. No. It's if you are from given country, let's see, if you are from Spain, there is no way that you are going to chant for Portugal or France or any other team. You are with Spain. Spain is your team. And if you are from England, of course, English team is your team, and you are going to root for England more, not more, but the only teams that you are going to root, not any other team. So you may call that this is a very nationalistic sport. Yes, it is, and I don't see anything wrong with that. You have to sometimes be nationalistic, and this is a perfect sport for that. Your flags, your country, and your players, your captain, and so on. And this is what you feel so happy about it.
That makes a lot of sense. Hey, Jacoby, just really quickly, and we only got a few more minutes to go, and maybe we'll get into some other.
Sorry, I have to leave now. But
okay, no problem. We'll try to wrap up shortly anyway, and everything. But Jacoby, just really quickly, one thing that I was curious about your thoughts on, in staying on the world side and even on the sports side and everything, is there's been a influx, and a significant influx in basketball, and I know you're a fan of basketball just as I am, of the international players. And I just wanted your take on that, because every time I turn around, the last draft we just had, and there was a bunch of players that came from a variety of countries. Of course, we know Milwaukee's got that Greek gentleman, and there's been a number of other players that were drafted that were from Eastern European countries. So I just wanted your take on another international sport, because lately basketball has become more international, and I just wanted your take on the rise in the international players, because I think this might have been the most international players drafted. I know there was a lot last year too, but this might have been the most this year and everything. So I just wanted your take on the international influx of athletes from around the world in basketball.
I mean, as it goes for any sport, the more popular a sport becomes, the more people join in internationally from every other country. It's just the natural growth of the sport. So because of the way basketball has been growing and taking off, same thing with cricket. There are going to be some American cricket players that are going to start to jump into cricket, even though it's so huge globally. And the more it grows across the U.S. and different areas in the U.S., the more U.S. players are going to be in there. Same thing, like I said, basketball being a sport that actually originated in Canada, but then became an Americanized sport. It's the more it grows across globally, the bigger it becomes, and more international players jump in. Players around the world are becoming a lot better. So honestly, even though there's a stacked U.S. squad, it's still going to be challenging for the U.S. team to win gold, more so than just a waltz over everybody. So yeah, I like it. I enjoy it. I think Victor Wembanyama is a unicorn. That man is amazing to watch on the basketball court. The things that he can do, how he is able to keep pace with a lot of the guards. His reach is amazing. There's actually a kid that's playing for another lower team, and he's actually taller than Victor, but he doesn't have the speed that Victor has. Zach Edey, who just left out of Purdue. Zach Edey is now one of the bigger guys in the NBA, but he doesn't have the quickness and the ability that
Yeah, I think that Toby got into a zone someplace where he's driving and all along those lines because it's starting to break up a little bit, but we'll see if he comes back and all along those lines. But yeah, it looks like it's a little bit of breaking up because that's how sometimes what happens when you're doing that travel and going around the travel and coming at us from a car and all along those lines. But definitely some interesting points and interest in seeing the rise in sports. And we do know that a international event is getting ready to take place at the end of this month, that being the Olympics. So hopefully we'll get some people that can come to us from France and other places and give us some coverage. And I'm sure that might even have some political overtones. I know in the years past it's had some political overtones, but there's even been some sad incidences like the Munich massacre and other things that have taken place at the Olympics and other sports events as well. So hopefully we won't have anything like that this year, even though I'm already hearing people that are concerned not just about the safety of the Olympics, but also what could be going on even with the water there as well, because I do know that there is one of the rivers, I think it might be the Seine, that is definitely got some pollution issues and all along those lines. So I think they're trying to work to make sure that it is safe, as I think that that's even part of the opening ceremony and all along those lines. So it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out, even with sports, because sports can also, just like entertainment, as we saw with George Clooney making some of his comments and all of those along those lines, but sports and entertainment can take political overtones in some of the things that go on in that way as well. So we got Coco McMillan coming up very shortly and all along those lines. So we're going to get on out of here, maybe a little bit earlier than expected, but all along that kind of way. But it was still another fun and interesting conversation. And we'll be back tomorrow with World Edition coming at you at 10 o'clock. And we'll see what folks have to say about a number of things, including how folks have been engaged in politics and even politics in things that aren't per se political, such as sports and entertainment and all along those lines. So we're going to get on out of here, and we'll be back on next Tuesday with World Politics, and of course Thursday as well. And we'll see some of our other panelists, and good to see Steve here with us this evening, and interesting to hear his comments on some of the things that he had been talking about on the other stations that he is affiliated with as well. And hopefully we'll see him tomorrow and we'll hear some more of these conversations. And of course, we're all waiting to hear what President Biden will be saying in about 30 minutes. So that will be coming our way at 6:30 at that particular press conference. And we do know that there have been some conversations about what should be done and how it will be done and all along those lines. So I'm actually going to be quite interested to see how this goes. I'm actually going to be spending time with my mom over the weekend for at least a day, maybe just only a day, but I know she was in those political circles as well. I can't wait to hear some of her thoughts around this and what she's thinking, as she has been retired from a number of things for a number of years. But it'll be interesting to see her thoughts and maybe even pass some of those thoughts back to y'all on next week and all along those lines. But right now we're going to get on out of here. Of course, we've got the other show coming in about 5 minutes, and we'll be ready to start that shortly. So hopefully stick around and hear that show at 6 o'clock. But right now we're going to get on out of here, and another great show with Sasha Starr, Steve Rao, and Jacoby in this particular time. But we'll come back, and we did have some comments from Midas and other folks as well. But right now we're going to get on out of here. It was good to be able to pull that clip from Midas Touch, and who knows, maybe I'll pull up some clips from the Robert Reich interview later on as well. But right now, let's get on out of here, and we'll catch y'all on another day. So right now, let's get ready to head on out, and we'll see you on Tuesday on World Politics.